watch what's happening here, because Mike Johnson's latest stumble isn't just about him. It's a snapshot of something bigger, the steady collapse of Trump's ability to command his own party. When your chosen speaker can't reliably gather votes from a caucus that supposedly belongs to you, you're not leading, you're begging. And when the President of the United States is reduced to pleading in public for his own party to do the most basic job of governing, keeping the government funded, that isn't strength, it's exposure. This funding crisis isn't a routine headache, it's a stress test. And it's revealing the hollowness at the center of Trump's supposed grip on Republican power. The image of the strong man who can snap his fingers and make lawmakers obey is breaking down in real time. And the clearest evidence isn't what critics are saying. It's what Trump himself is posting. Read the tone of Trump's statements in moments like this. It's not commanding. It's coaxing. It's a man trying to will authority into existence with all caps insistence and repetition because he no longer has the basic tool real power brokers use, private leverage that actually works. There's a difference between influence and noise. Influence is when you make the call and the votes appear. Noise is when you keep posting and the votes still don't show up. And right now, the votes are not showing up. That's why Johnson's role is so revealing. He has the title, the gavel, the camera time. But he does not have a majority that behaves like a majority. He has a caucus that behaves like a collection of independent contractors, each one demanding payment in attention, in policy concessions, or in ideological performance. And when the speaker has to negotiate with his own backbenchers as if they're a rival party, the real truth is simple. The caucus isn't governed by leadership. It's governed by hostage-taking. That kind of majority is mathematically fragile and politically humiliating because it turns every routine funding deadline into a cliff, every procedural vote into a potential shutdown, and every internal dispute into a national crisis. The speaker can't lead when a handful of members can sink everything on demand. And Trump can't fix it when the members no longer fear him. That's the shift you should focus on. Fear used to be Trump's enforcement mechanism. He didn't need persuasion, he needed intimidation. He could threaten primary challengers, direct media attacks, and mobilize the base against any Republican who crossed him. But fear only works if people believe you can punish them more than the system can punish you. In the last few years, a lot of Republicans have started to realize something. Trump's punishment doesn't always end your career anymore. Sometimes it helps you. Sometimes it turns you into a martyr. Sometimes it just becomes background noise in a media environment already saturated with outrage. And that's how you lose the only kind of power Trump ever truly had. Psychological power. You can see it in how lawmakers respond now. They hedge. They stall. They say, I respect the president, while refusing to give him what he wants. They praise him publicly and defy him quietly. And when he lashes out, they don't fold the way they used to. Even the way Trump attacks opponents inside his own party is revealing. A confident leader doesn't need to go personal, especially not in ways that look petty or cruel. A confident leader applies pressure behind closed doors and keeps the public message disciplined. But a leader who feels control slipping does the opposite. He escalates publicly, humiliates people, and tries to scare everyone else into compliance. The problem is that public humiliation works only when it looks like dominance. When it starts looking like desperation, it backfires. And it backfires even more when the speaker's majority is one vote away from collapsing. Because in that environment, You don't pick unnecessary fights with members whose votes you might need tomorrow morning. You don't insult the people you can't afford to lose. Yet that's exactly the behavior we keep seeing. Trump creating new enemies inside his own tent, turning routine disagreement into personal war, and then acting surprised when the caucus becomes less governable. Johnson has his own problem. He's trapped between Trump's demands and the caucus's chaos. When he goes on television, he's forced to speak in slogans. We're united. We're productive. We're governing. But everyone can see the mismatch between the words and the reality. The best proof isn't a Democratic talking point. It's the repeated pattern of brinkmanship, internal rebellion, and legislative paralysis. And the most revealing lines are always the ones about private discussions. When leaders say, "We debate behind the curtain," what they often mean is, "I can't admit the conflict publicly because it proves weakness." It's political theater designed to conceal dysfunction. But the dysfunction shows up anyway, because the system can't be spun forever. Deadlines arrive. Agencies run out of money. Federal workers become collateral. Markets get jittery. Voters see the chaos. And then Johnson's majority becomes what it actually is, a hostage situation. One vote majorities don't govern. They survive. They survive by cutting deals with rebels. They survive by turning must-pass bills into ideological vehicles. They survive by trading governance for spectacle, because spectacle is easier than negotiation. Which brings us to the current rebel dynamic. There are always a few members who understand leverage. If leadership needs every vote, then one member can demand anything. Policy riders, symbolic provisions, extremist priorities, because leadership can't afford to lose them. So you get poison pills. You get demands that are designed not to pass the Senate, not to become law, but to trigger confrontation, raise fundraising, and create viral clips. And this is how shutdowns happen, not because the country wants one, but because a small faction needs the drama and the leverage. The Senate, meanwhile, usually signals the reality. Certain riders are dead on arrival. Certain provisions will never clear. And the House has to decide whether it wants to govern or perform. That's the real fork. And right now, the House looks trapped in performance mode. What makes this moment more damaging for Trump is that he can't unify the factions. He can't discipline them. He can't even produce the basic result he's asking for. Pass the funding agreement, stop the bleeding, avoid another self-inflicted crisis. So instead, he posts, he urges, he demands, he repeats himself. He tries to manufacture inevitability with words. But words don't fund the government. Votes do. And if he had the votes, he wouldn't be asking so loudly. That's why the begging tone matters. It's the opposite of command. It is a public acknowledgement that the Speaker and the President are not in control of the machine. It also creates a strategic opening for the opposition, not because Democrats have to do anything clever, but because the Republican Party is doing the damage for them. In moments like this, the smartest move for Democrats is often restraint. Don't rescue the other side from its own chaos. Don't provide the votes that allow Republicans to pretend they're competent. Let the public see the truth. A party that can't manage its own members can't manage a government. That doesn't mean Democrats should root for pain. Shutdowns harm people. But politically, the lesson of repeated brinkmanship is that voters punish the party that looks reckless. And when the same party keeps creating the same crisis, the public eventually stops believing their excuses. There's also a deeper issue: legitimacy. Governing requires the public to believe the people in charge can do basic tasks. Keep the lights on, pay workers, pass budgets, respond to emergencies without turning everything into a hostage negotiation. When those basic tasks fail repeatedly, the public's trust erodes. And eroded trust creates a vacuum where extremes thrive. That's why internal GOP dysfunction matters beyond party politics. It's not just embarrassing, it's corrosive. Now you might wonder, can Johnson survive? Speakers have fallen for less. But paradoxically, he might survive precisely because the caucus can't agree on a replacement. When the majority is razor thin and the factions hate each other, removing the speaker can be self-destructive. So leadership limps forward, not because it's strong, but because the alternative is even more chaos. And that's not stability, it's stalemate. As for Trump, the bigger point is this. His influence is no longer absolute. It's conditional. And once influence becomes conditional, it becomes negotiable. Lawmakers start testing boundaries. They see which defiance gets punished and which defiance gets ignored. They learn that the threat is not always real. And once they learn that, the fear collapses. That's why you're seeing more public resistance, more members choosing their own incentives over Trump's demands, more fragmentation, more "I'm with Trump, but" statements that would have been unthinkable a few years ago. The party is starting to behave like a coalition without a commander. And in that environment, Trump's instinct, attack harder, insult more, threaten louder, becomes self-defeating. It pushes people away. It turns quiet dissent into open defiance. It makes the president look smaller, not bigger. So what does this mean for the near term? It likely means the funding crisis drags. It means more brinkmanship. It means leadership tries to stitch together a deal while a faction tries to sabotage it for leverage. It means Trump continues posting demands that don't translate into votes. And it means Republicans keep showing the country a simple message without saying it. They can't govern consistently, even when they control the House. For the longer term, the implication is more serious. When the public sees a party incapable of basic governance, midterm elections become a referendum on competence, not ideology. And competence is harder to fake when the government keeps grinding to a halt. Here's the takeaway. Trump's brand is dominance. Johnson's job is control. And right now, neither is delivering. A strong leader doesn't beg publicly. A functioning speaker doesn't get held hostage by backbenchers. A governing majority doesn't live one vote away from collapse. What you're watching is the opposite. A party in which power is fragmented, discipline is gone, and the leader is reduced to performance rather than command. And once a political movement becomes performance without control, the decline isn't a question of if. It's a question of how fast.